Hi, everyone that's coming in. I know it's going to take just a moment to get connected. Really excited to have you at our Mindful AI virtual event today. I'm just going to admitting people into the waiting room. As we admit people into the our meeting room here, I should say not wait room, but admit people into our Zoom room. Just if you could put in the chat where you're from, what city are you coming from? And perhaps in the chat as well, put your city and something that you're feeling some joy about today. Maybe it's joy about attending this event and connecting with others. Maybe something this week brought you joy. So again, just put in the chat, where are you from? And what's a moment of joy that you're feeling? So let's see. Okay. As I'm admitting others, I just want to welcome everyone to COSEMs. So COSEM is short for the Coalition of School Educating Mindfully. We are a nonprofit organization. Again, the Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully, our Mindful AI virtual mini summit with our speakers today are our board president, Lindsey Frank, Michelle Ament with the Human Intelligence Movement, and Dr. Elsa Fries with Alongside. So we hope to create a learning space that opens the lines of communication, sparks curiosity and insights, and broadens our understanding and perspectives with other educators and thought leaders about the positive interactions and collaborative opportunities for AI, mindfulness-based social emotional learning, and education. So I see many of you here are also interested in that intersection. As I move on, and Lindsey, as you see others come into the waiting room as co-hosts, can you let them in? I'm going to go to the next slide. I just want to show you some reminders today. For our members that are in attendance today, there is a link that's linked your sign in and sign out form for each session, so you can get those PD hours if you're working on that. And just be aware to, with any connection with AI, just consult with your school district and your technology departments to just make sure you're in compliance and check your accessibilities and permissions. I just bring a little bit of attention to legal implications and a reminder not to use your personal identifiable information into any AI. And just reminding ourselves to have awareness that AI is developing. Biases may still be present. And so things may still need to be verified. Everyone is approaching with their own lens and experience. So it's important to support each other's growth and mindset. And we want to come from a standpoint as viewing this conversation from possibilities. So a preview of the day I've mentioned at 1 o'clock, and shortly we'll get started since we're just having everybody come into the Zoom room right now, is we'll start with our first speaker, Lindsey Frank, our COSEM president, and she is the founder of her own company, The Butterfly Within. She will be talking about the intersection of AI, mindfulness, and education. We'll have a 5-minute break after each speaker. So if you need to use the restroom, you stay in the Zoom room and you can turn your camera off. Make sure you're on mute unless you have a question at the end. When we have questions, and I can ask you to come off mute, or you can pop those questions into the chat. After Lindsey at 2 p.m., we'll have Michelle and some panelists with the Human Intelligence Movement talking about harmonizing human and artificial intelligence, SEL, and mindfulness in modern education. And then to close out our time together at our Mindful AI mini summit, we'll have Dr. Elsa Fries with Alongside talking about how AI-powered tools can enhance human-centered work. And then we'll have a short closeout. So if we could just take maybe 20 seconds, silent and solo, and read our COSEM's mission. Really want to steep us in the work that we do at the Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully. So again, 15 more seconds, reading COSEM's mission. All right, I'm going to be moving to the next slide. Just a few agreements for today. Remember, listen and share from an open heart and mind. Be present. Try to put technology away as you can so we can be engaged in our learning and connection and development today. Take risks, ask questions, engage, and see the possibilities in the intersection of these content areas. I do want to share that COSEM is going to have a mindfulness-based SEL special workshop coming up on September 26th at 6 p.m. Central Time. Please visit our events page at educatingmindfully.org/events for more information. We'll also link that in the email going out. And really, I want to recognize our special partners. Thank you Alongside. Thank you, the Human Intelligence Movement, the Butterfly Within, Illinois Digital Educators Alliance, and my very own podcast, Mind Declutter with Athea Davis. So before we dive into Lindsey's discussion today, her presentation, I would love to ground ourselves in one collective mindfulness breath. So wherever you are, I invite you to take your feet flat on the floor if your feet are touching the floor, or if you're in a crisscross position, you could do that as well. I invite you to close your eyes. If you're uncomfortable with that, you can gaze towards a focal point, just one collective breath so we can all get present for our time together today. Sit up nice and tall. You're going to take a long, slow, deep breath in through your nose. Relax your shoulders as you inhale. Stay tall. Root your feet through the floor. Exhale slowly through your mouth. All right. With that mindful moment, and without further ado, Lindsey will be presenting as soon as I stop screen sharing so she can share her slides. And as she gets that situated, that was very quick, Lindsey. I was going to look at a couple of these comments in the chat from Moments of Joy. I'll do that quietly.
No, absolutely. And I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us here today and just holding space, being co-creators. In the chat, I want to validate a couple things. Yes, this is being recorded. Yes, this will be included in that email that Athea had mentioned. So no worries if you have to pop in and pop out. We wanted to make sure that this space is available and accessible as we all continue learning and growing together. And it's great to see all of the different locations where everybody's coming in at. So just amazing to see this work and how we're just starting, right? And creating together. I also put a couple links in the chat too for reference for later as well. So my name is Lindsey Frank. I am the president of the Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully, but I'm also the creator of the Butterfly Within, which is really supporting transformation. And that's really where, when we are supporting that intersection and we are supporting our mindsets and growth, that's where that transformation happens within ourselves and within education, and then really within society. And this intersection really has the power and potential for such an incredible experience of what's coming ahead. So thank you for this exploration together. I will pause on the screen for a moment because there is a QR code. And then Athea, if you can maybe pop that extra link for that bio site here. This is something that I'm sharing that has the resources for today and additional resources, and also connecting if you want to connect further after today as well. This QR code will come up a couple different times, as well as the link in the chat, so you can always come back to it. There will be a special PDF in there that is a free resource that has all different kinds of tools and guide and action plan, those types of things that we'll be able to share a little bit here together. So as also for me, I've also been in the classroom. I was a special education teacher. I was a district-wide climate and social emotional learning coach. So I wear a lot of different lenses when I am engaging with all of us here today. And for our time, we'll be meeting at that intersection, engaging in reflection, and then shifting and supporting mindsets. So the different strategies that we'll be sharing here today. And all of this really builds on top of each other throughout the day. Athea really did an amazing job connecting with our speakers today and just how the connection will move throughout. So as we begin this work, we really want to start with the why. So often we get stuck in that what, like what tool, how do I use this tool? What is AI? But really connecting back to the why do we need it? Why is this here? Why is this important to us? Why is this in education? Why is it in the world? And so I also want to mention, you'll notice that there are blue butterflies throughout the presentation that are also either strategies or teaching moves or resources. And so this is just a reminder here that we really do need to start with why. And there are two stories that I want to share that portray this why. One story is going to be more of a connected personal story, and the other story is more of a bigger picture. So I'm going to tell a story briefly about Alex, and I did adjust the name here for their confidentiality. And I want to invite you to think about, is there an Alex in your life, in your school, in your class? So with Alex, before the pandemic, Alex was really going through different types of identity exploration. He was really looking for like who they are, how they contribute into the world, and the value. Then the pandemic happened, and then any different resource that they had left. They felt isolated. They didn't have resources, and they really fell into a really deep spiral and really deep depression. And then Alex really considered taking his life. But then Alex found AI, and Alex then was able to directly connect and make those relationships, even with AI, to support their well-being. And we're able to actually talk through some things with something that was always available, something that had a neutral space that also provided that validation. And now Alex knows who she is. And Alex is here and empowered in our world and doing what Alex needs to do. And so that is just something to think about on the power of AI, and especially within chatbots. And here, within our chatbot space, Alex used Replica and Chai AI, which I just want to mention, those really aren't resources within the school setting, but they are still resources with chatbots as one area within AI. But I also want to highlight, especially alongside who you'll be hearing from later on today, who specifically have an essential resource for mental health and well-being, and using AI to support that, as well as resources like Chat Owl. And I also want to highlight ChatGPT. We hear about ChatGPT all the time. And what I'd like to actually do, and for those of you who are very, very passionate about technology, I want to just pause because you may know, but I'm really asking this question for those who may not know. And here's our question. What does GPT actually stand for? So I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm just going to have this here with their logo and put in the chat, what does GPT actually stand for? Let me just come into the chat for a moment. Oh my gosh, just so many people here. This is amazing.
Do they get a prize?
I wish I had actually, you know what? Yes, Athea, I actually have a book giveaway. And I think for this, what I'll have you do, Athea, is take a look and just pick a name from there, and they'll be the one that will receive one of my children's books. Okay, let me go here. Generative. Okay, so we have some different things. So we have generative pre-something transformer, generative pre-trained transformer, generative pre-trained protocol trainer, generative pre-trained transformer. All right, well done, yes. So generative pre-trained transformer. And I want to highlight and bold that last word, transformer. And to see that in this space, that is what it is doing. That is what we are doing. We are transforming. And so a mindset shift, because that's really where we're focusing on here as a resource as well as mindset, is allowing, even within our classrooms and teachers and leaders, as we're using these resources, if we can focus on the fact that we are transforming together, right? And all the phases of transformation that has. All right, let me see here. Yes, Margot, absolutely. Everybody, make sure you can check out that chat too for about alongside. So here's what we can learn from AI and Alex's story. It is always present. It is indistractable. It listens. It communicates clearly. It's solution focused, creates connection and service. It learns from the past to create a better future. And even with, as we mentioned, there are still some of those biases. It's learning too. It's learning with us. So we have to co-create with it so it can continue to create a better future. So we have to ask that question of how can we leverage this together in schools and our world? So I'm going to pause on that question for a moment, just so you can just let that resonate with your heart, and maybe taking like what Athea did earlier in that collective breath. So just inviting that breath in as it feels comfortable, that question of how can we leverage this together in schools and world, and exhaling that out into the world. So now we have a second story. And this one is really education's story and transformation. So here's our next question. And this will also be an invitation in the chat. I wish we had a little more time for some breakout rooms, but our chat is where we're going to be connecting today. So the question is, what is the purpose of schools? And thinking about what that purpose has been in the past, what it is doing right now in the purpose right now, and what is the purpose in the future. So just thinking about that and sharing in the chat, and maybe you think about like in the past, what was the purpose of schools? Or forward thinking of where we're going. And again, we'll pause for about a minute just so you can get your thoughts down, and feel free to share in the chat, or even write in your journal, however you best want to experience today. So in the chat, we have preparing kids for a future, yet still what is unimaginable. Yeah, absolutely. All right, another one. What it should be, equipping learners with the knowledge and skills that they need to succeed in various contexts like education, work, and life. Making sure students get to their full potential, helping generations live better lives. Ooh, Miguel, thank you here. Past, industrialization. Present, to like educate, like mind space. And then future, evolve. Yes, I always am like thinking about that evolution, or I'm one that's all about butterflies and that metamorphosis that we're going through as well. Yes, keep them coming, keep them coming. So really, I always like to think about like we literally started from chalk, right? Like, let's just honor a moment how amazing we have come as a species and humanity, from chalk to AI, right? Like that is, I mean, it's amazing to think about, and just celebrating that. And we are all alive at this time. Like we get to create what is coming, that evolution that was shared. Right, like it blows my mind. And so there were a couple of things, because as we connect with AI, I want to read these slides, because these are the types of responses that you get from AI. Like when you ask it these powerful questions, it is there with a positive, transformative purpose. And so often we always hear about the fear around AI and all of just not as a positive experience. But when you actually cut through the noise of all of that, at the core, this is what AI even says, that the integration of AI in education has the potential to reshape the traditional focus on knowledge acquisition in schools. As AI technologies advance, there is an opportunity for schools to shift their emphasis and purpose toward social and emotional development and well-being. I mean, yes, like this is so powerful. And the vision for the future of education involves a harmonious integration of AI technologies and human-centered approaches, creating an educational environment that nurtures both the intellect and the heart. And I am really excited for the next session from Human Intelligence Movement, because you are going to be able to really feel this connection that they bring. And I also want to give Athea a shout out here from her podcast. Athea, feel free to put that in the chat too. But she did an amazing interview with Michelle, and just it was gorgeous. It was beautiful just how this impact and work is happening. So please please share. And so that brings us to here, where literally we can think about the quality of life and like, what would life be like if this is how education can be, as truly the core and foundation. Like AI allows more time to be freed up. And when we can free up that time, that allows us to actually develop these boundaries within ourselves, these experiences that we can have, prioritization within well-being. Yeah, I get very excited. So we are going through that transformation. And here's that question here. How can you compare a chrysalis to education? And again, we'll pause for about a minute, just thinking like, what is this comparison? Thinking about what happens even within that chrysalis space. You know, I always like to ask deep questions, and it's always hard typing something that can be so profound as well. I'll wait just a few moments in case, but there is a core concept here that I want to make sure that I can share. Athea, I saw that you unmuted. Did you want to share something?
Yeah. I just want to clarify. You want everyone to write their response in the chat to this question?
Yes.
Okay.
How can you compare the chrysalis to education? And thinking about present time now, and thinking about what actually happens in the chrysalis. A safe place for learners to grow, evolution and growth. You know, I always find it fascinating. It always comes back to the butterfly life cycle, which I'll share again in a bit. It is the safe place for a developing individual to grow and mature before being set loose into the world. A student, like chrysalis, develops over time through education. As they grow, they gradually open up, and eventually, like a colorful butterfly, they emerge successfully and ready to soar. Protection and a layer of entrapment. Yeah, kids are in chrysalis phase, grades, a grade ready grade through grade 12, K-12, most of you, and are unprepared for the reality for life after being quote unquote educated. And the real experience is once it leaves the chrysalis. Okay, this is amazing, everybody. Thank you for taking that risk as one of our agreements here today and really connecting here. Okay, they're just so good. train mindful students to become an aware person and thrive in life. If done right, education is transformative, allowing learners to shape not only their knowledge and skills, but their identity and their sense of purpose and begin their path in life. Okay, these are beautiful. Thank you all for sharing. And there are so many lenses to take with this, right? And I think this is a powerful strategy as well when you're supporting mindsets within staff and even with your learners, right? The chrysalis actually is that moment where everything turns to absolute complete goop. And within the goop, that's actually called imaginal cells. Fun fact. And I always talk about how that core word imagine is in imaginal cells. And so we have to go through a break, like you're going through that breakdown in order to have that breakthrough. And so even our systems, we're feeling it. We feel the pressure. We feel the goop. We're in that goop phase. But as many of you validated, that's an essential part. We have to go through that part so that that future and evolution happen. And that's where this is a very powerful tool when you're sharing with staff this new mindset and just inviting them to identify where they are at on this phase. Some of us are just at that egg phase where, we have the idea, we've heard of something, that second phase of learning what's around us, that chrysalis phase, like it just feels really goopy. Maybe that resistance is there. And then that burst, that like, oh my gosh, that inspiration, that charge that allows us to break through, to then integrate, try it, and then eventually have those wings. So really asking, where are you at on that continuum? And then thinking about how this can help facilitate conversations around change within your schools and even with your students, because when those resistant conversations happen or creative conversations happen, there's always somewhere on this continuum and what's next. And I do have to give my book a shout out because I have my books here. This is a really awesome resource to help support change. Although it's a children's books can be used across grade levels. So yes, you can find it on Amazon. You could find it on that link and QR code if you are interested. But I had to give it a shout out because it's all about supporting change. This is another resource that I've written that really compares that change process and how to coach into that. That is also on that bio link QR code that I shared earlier, just so you have it. So all of that brings us to this intersection, how AI, education, and mindfulness and full presence of an entire experience come together. And I'm going to share here and ask this question about what makes a human different than AI. And just pausing for a moment to think about that. And I do want you to put it in the chat. What is something about us that makes us different than AI? Because AI, AI can mirror a lot of human qualities. So I'm curious. Processing speed. Yes. And I love how sense of humor was right after that comment. That was awesome. Experiences uniquely human about us is authentic curiosity, emotions, and decision-making power. Okay. I'm Belgian. I love that what you shared. And just for timing, I'm going to keep going here. We have that emotion side with us because we can not only identify our emotions, we can feel and have sensations. AI can't sense that, like it doesn't actually feel that. And even there's a whole continuum of AI and, eventually it can like mirror it, but it could never actually feel the sensations. Like, what does happiness feel like? What does anger feel like? All of that within, and take action. AI can't do what it needs to do unless there's action, and that's where that collaboration comes in with it. So I'm going to offer this formula for us. And there are other areas that allow us to have a difference within AI, but those are the two core that I want to pull to surface. That there's a redefined human intelligence, and I'm going to mention again that human intelligence movement that's coming up next, they're redefining what human intelligence means. It's not just the concept of the mind. It is human as a whole intelligence, plus our artificial, which I like to call expansive intelligence, because to me, artificial, it's using truth. So, and creativity, but I like to call it expansive intelligence. And all of that together then creates authentic intelligence when we work together. So then here's the process in which we can take. Human is our signal, what's happening within us. Artificial, then it's like, okay, now I can go and use this resource to help me solve a problem, work through something, create something. Back to human, which is now checking, how did that feel when I'm connected with artificial intelligence? So that's where that mindfulness piece is really core at all of this, plus action. So all of that is wonderful, but it doesn't matter unless there's action. And all of that propels that authentic intelligence. So this is my second book, and this is the one that I'm saying I'm giving away. So Athea, afterward, or if you want to announce whoever that person was, you have received this, which is my other children's book called The Superpower of Your Heart. HEART is an acronym on how we make responsible decisions, responsible, mindful decisions that work across all domains. And this is essential because we have to be developing our learners in order to make those responsible decisions, especially when we're engaging with technology and our world as a whole. So bottom line, our mindset matters. I do see there's some more things in the chat. I'm going to double check that in a moment, but I do want to just mention a few more pieces before I look there, okay? All right, so with our mindset, I also want to share this visual, and I like to keep that rubber band. And normally this is another question, but I'm just going to share it today. All right, so when you're thinking about supporting teachers and students and staff, and we already validated that often there is resistance. We've also validated that there is a chrysalis moment. All of this is a part of the process. And so normally I then ask, what happens when there's resistance? Well, we need the resistance because that is what supercharges our intention. And I think it was Athea earlier today too, she shared about the intentionality. And so with intention, we can either have that collaborative intention or more of the, I don't want to say non-impactful intention. Like we want to make sure that we have that intention that then allows this to go where it needs to go. So again, even having a rubber band when you're sharing with staff, validate the resistance, validate that it's okay, and then validate that that can propel us where we need to go. All right, Athea, I do see our time. I still have a little bit. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to offer these questions because there's a couple tools I want to make sure that you walk away with here today. And again, if you have any questions ever and you want to learn further, you can absolutely reach out to me at any time. So here's our next couple questions. You do not have to put them in the chat. I'm just offering them here today for you. And thinking about how you feel about technology in general, and also how your colleagues may feel about technology and AI in general, and noticing the different kinds of mindsets that are there. And then think about what emotions and thoughts are you having around AI, well-being, and education. These are wonderful introductory questions when you're just starting to engage in this work with your school or even district or wherever you may be. And there's a strategy that I would be having you do, which is really validating all of those mindsets that you have or thought process that you have, emotions that you have, then validating it, and then moving through this process that I call the check it, the catch it, the check it, and the change it. Again, always around that butterfly where we can catch the thought loops if they are negative or if they are positive. And positive and negative not meaning good or bad, they're just which side are we leaning in on. And so we can catch it. Is it helpful? Then I have a choice. I'm going to check it. Is it going to help propel me and move me in the right direction? No matter what this is for anything, but especially when we're engaging in this work. And then I have that choice to change it. And so the strategy that then comes after that is developing a courageous, affirming statement so that when you're engaging in technology, and sometimes it doesn't go according to plan, and sometimes technology can really instill some kind of emotion sometimes when it doesn't work because we think technology always has to be perfect. Well, it's doing its own and its best too, and we have to validate that too. So that affirming statement allows you to get out of the thought loop or other people out of the thought loop. Next couple resources is in a PDF, there is a collective belief and intention. Let me check the chat for a second here. Thank you, everybody. All right. So for the next example, I was inviting you to really think about how you can create as a school community or a team community, or even with your students, a collective belief around technology. So now you validated your own, you're helping to shift your own. So now how can we make this collective for us? So before engaging in any learning, PLC, or any of those opportunities where there might be some different mindsets, we can come back to as a collective belief and intention. And so this QR code, again, will still take you to, this might take you directly to the PDF, but you can still get that on that bio site. And there is a resource there that gives you how can you maybe create these collective beliefs. A mindfulness practice that is the 5-step moment that for those of you who are have taken or may take our MBSEL micro-credential, I share about that strategy, so that embeds that here. Also, there's a resource in that PDF, and it's really like these bite-sized opportunities, right? They're like the little bite-sized moments where we can really integrate the steps about learning something, trying it, integrating it, reflecting, refining, and sharing. This might be something that you can then integrate within your team of like, let's start small. Let's try one thing and then continue to embed it throughout the month, or just really making sure it's in a nurtured space. Athea, I have 5 minutes, right? Perfect. Thank you. So then when we think about all of those different components, so we validated where we're at in history, really. We're validating what is possible. We are supporting the mindsets. Now we come to, well, what are those skills that we need to develop for that intersection to be successful? And I'm pretty sure our next session will definitely go into that a little bit too. And also thinking about what skills do we also need to let go of, right? Like, I mean, there might be some things that we have to let go of in order for us to grow. And these are just some of those different skills that are needed. And the purple ones are the ones that I really feel like keep coming back around that are really essential for this success. And then that question is, well, what if we don't meet at the intersection? What may happen? And is that worth seeing? I hope personally not, that I hope we all meet at that intersection. This was just a resource for prompting, but again, I'm going to move through that because most of us here have engaged in that work. I will say that this book here, The AI Classroom from Dan Fitzpatrick, is really great and breaks some things down. So perhaps this is another action step that you might be interested in exploring. But then that brings us here for action. This is also still in that same PDF and that you can get on that bio site, but it's an action planning tool. There's also a rating scale just before in that resource where it'll help you to choose and where you can focus and then how you can develop that for success no matter the environment in which you are supporting into. And I'm going to I'm going to come back to here. These are essential questions. We're in a questioning space. This is all new. We're all learning. And as we learn more, we refine. So these are continued questions for you as you continue this work. And for me, I'm all around creating courageous, calm, and connected classrooms. So these are core questions that support into that. What courageous steps are needed to confidently explore outside your comfort zone or help those explore outside of theirs? What practices are needed to support and transform your school climate? And then for connection, how can you reimagine connection and elevate humanity? And I'm just going to pause for a collective breath, breathing in these questions into our heart if that feels like it's something that resonates with you, and exhaling out into the world. And I'm closing with really this invitation to know how our hand has the power to create change. And we can see it and feel it in our world. We can feel the division that is within our world. And I truly do believe that this intersection is the key to help our world truly evolve and for us to really have that transformational impact. So this is an invitation for you. And I know all of us here today, you are here for a reason, whether you're just starting out or this is your passion and calling, or it's just continued learning because this is where we are at in humanity and we know this is our next step. So please meet us at the intersection. Thank you, Athea. I'm just going to pop this up here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lindsey. So much great information that you shared. So many resources. Definitely check out that bio site with all the resources there and give Lindsey a follow. Any questions? This is time for questions that you were thinking about on your mind, anything that Lindsey said that sparked a connection. Maybe it's not a question, maybe it's a connection you'd like to share. You can share that in the chat now. You can come off mute if I see you. I'm going to navigate through here if I see your hand up, so we don't have multiple people coming off mute and sharing. So maybe do the emoji hand raise. I'm just going through here, or you can share any thoughts or thank yous or anything that you want to share in the chat regarding Lindsey's presentation. Amy says, I appreciate the idea that we need to let some things go to grow. Yeah, Amy, I agree. I thought that was a great way to close, Lindsey, and thank you for that reminder to let things go. And in that, we find new possibilities always being created in this techno biosphere that we are living in at this moment in time. As things are let go, we create the space for new opportunities to be born. I like the energy, Miguel says, almost felt like it was not even virtual. Agreed, for sure. More thank yous to Lindsey. Jed says, I really appreciate your information and your energy. Likewise, Lindsey, if I'm going to maybe give 30 more seconds for any other comments or questions. During this time, we're going to take a short break, just meaning stay in the Zoom room. Don't go anywhere. You can just turn your video off. But Michelle is going to be coming up with the human intelligence movement right at 2 o'clock. And if there aren't any questions, just turn your video off, go grab some coffee, tea, water, take a restroom break, a stretch break for sure if you're seated. And I will be right here if there are any other questions. Waiting, yeah, waiting. So we'll wait here just for about 10 minutes, and then we'll all hop back on for Michelle's presentation with the human intelligence movement that will come up right at 2 o'clock. So try to be here maybe just a couple minutes right before 2 as I have Michelle come on. Michelle says, inspiring. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Make sure to grab your water and take a little stretch break if you are seated. Well, I want to welcome everybody back. We have just another minute. Wow, what a great start to our first session today with Lindsey, our board president from the Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully. I dived right into this event, and hopefully, I forgot to even say hi. I'm Athea Davis. I wear many hats, but today I am wearing the hat as the events coordinator for professional learning and development with the Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully, and really just filled with so much gratitude for being part of this Mindful AI Summit. It's been my little baby, meaning I birthed this idea, and so happy to have all you here together to make this idea a reality today. So as with that said, I want to just quickly go back to the preview for today for our next session coming up right at 2 o'clock with Dr. Michelle Ahmed, Harmonizing Human and Artificial Intelligence, SEL, and Mindfulness and Modern Education. There will actually be a couple of other speakers in this next presentation, also with the human intelligence movement, so more of a panel style discussion. I'm going to make you co-host right now, Michelle, and I just did that. So I'm going to stop my screen share so you can get your slides up. As Michelle's getting her slides up and we dive into our next session, I do want to take a quick mindful moment. So again, encouraging us and inviting us all to steep ourselves in these mindful moments that are key to our really foundational to our success in this new era of human intelligence and artificial intelligence positively working together. So I'd like to invite you to do hands on heart. So hands on heart breath. You just take your hands and place one on your heart, the other hand right over the hand that's over your heart. Sit up nice and tall. And I invite you to close your eyes. If you're uncomfortable with that, again, just take and softly gaze towards a focal point and sit up nice and tall. Just bringing your attention to your breath, and we'll just take that one collective breath with hands on heart. So long, slow, deep breath in through your nose. And then relaxing your shoulders, nice and tall. Exhale slowly out of your mouth. And you can stay there doing a couple more on your own, that hands on heart breath. One of my favorites, not only are you practicing your mindfulness breath, but you're also putting a little gentle compression on the body, which is calming to the nervous system. And really helpful if you're experiencing overwhelm, anxiety. Can you spotlight the speaker? Oh, yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you.
Yeah, no worries. I see you have a question there spotlighting the speakers. Are you able to get your slides up? Yeah.
Yeah, if you want me to get started? I didn't mean to interrupt your.
Yeah, no worries. I just wanted to do that quick transition for you to go
Okay,
ahead and begin.
super.
Yep.
All right. Well, hi everyone. I'm Michelle Ement, and it is a pleasure to be with you all today. I am here to share with you a lot about the human intelligence movement and also introduce you to some of my founding members on the team that we are going to have a lively panel discussion, as Athea said. So I want to start by just sharing with you a little bit about the human intelligence movement. And we always ask this question at the beginning: what makes you uniquely human? So go ahead and grab the chat. And one of the things you are going to recognize, we did not plan this, but Lindsey's presentation and my presentation there are so many overlaps. I feel like it's like serendipitous, Lindsey, because the things I'm going to say, you just said in so many words. And so I know that we talked a little bit about what makes you uniquely human from AI. So let's just center ourselves in that human-centered stance on what it is that makes you uniquely human. And thanks again for introducing yourselves. We've got some new people joining us, and just it's great to build community and understand kind of who's in the room. And I'm seeing some different things coming into the chat in terms of what makes you uniquely human, because there's so many things there. It's not just one answer. So fantastic. Got some dog lovers. We've got some inappropriateness, some wordplay. I love the playful spirit here in the room. So, the human intelligence movement was really founded and put together because Travis Allen and I really started to think about education through the ages. And we thought about what education looked like in the past. And really, the education system is created to really build people to be career ready. And it was put in place so that you'd have the skills you needed, the lifelong skills to thrive in life and in a career. And if we think about the past, our careers were really focused on physical labor. And so our school system was it wasn't even really formal, a formal school system wasn't in place. You were really learning from others through apprenticeship, and that idea of knowing what about that trade or physical labor was typically passed down in families or within communities. And then the Industrial Revolution came along. And with that new Industrial Revolution, we began to formalize school. And I think about what Miguel said when he said the past and the present and the future. He used industrialization, educate, and evolve. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. I saw so many parallels here, that when that Industrial Revolution came to be, we started to formalize learning and education. And really, that is the present day for many, many, many years. The school system that we have in place today has been in place. We often refer to it as a traditional system that was designed to equip learners with knowledge. And I would argue that there is a focus on really assessing that knowledge and focus on accountability measures and standardized assessments on knowledge. But what we are missing is what students are able to do with that. How are they able to apply that knowledge and develop skills that they will use in careers and for lifelong? And so as AI has come into our world so present, so rapidly, as Lindsey said, we have an opportunity right now. And all of us on this call coming together to think about what is that opportunity and how do we harness this. And so at the Human Intelligence Movement, we think about that synergy of AI and human intelligence to really begin to know that the future means that we will need students that can succeed and thrive in an AI world. And I think about, Lindsey, what you said about authentic intelligence, the merging of human intelligence and artificial intelligence for authentic intelligence really resonates with our community. The mission of this movement is to ensure that all students have the skills to thrive and succeed in an AI world. And when I talk about the human intelligence movement, it really is a movement. Travis Allen and I put our heads together and created this movement back in wait for it, March of 2024. So yeah, that was only like 3 weeks ago. One of our panelists today, Brian Arnold, was like one of the first people I ever spoke about the movement to. We sat on a park bench outside in San Diego, and it seems so long ago that conversation happened, but it was just months ago where we started to conceptualize, okay, how do we bring people who are passionate about human intelligence and the need for this in our AI world together? And we set out to do three things in the movement. The first is to generate awareness, and exactly what we're doing today. really just bringing people together to talk about the importance of these skills that we call human intelligences. These are the soft skills, social emotional skills, durable skills, 4Cs, all of those terms that we've used, but really elevating what those skills mean and starting to create awareness of the importance of really focusing on these skills, because knowledge is going to be is available with AI. Lindsey put on the screen all the ways that AI can help and produce knowledge. But what we believe is there are many human intelligences that make us uniquely human that cannot be replicated by AI. And we feel passionately about creating awareness of those human intelligences and the urgent, important need to make sure that our schools are focusing on building human intelligences for our AI world. And because I'll tell you, we don't believe that we're getting it right. And so we've built this community to come together to solve this wicked problem of how do we begin to shift the focus from knowledge acquisition to skill acquisition, as we call the human intelligences. And so we have established a community, and I am so excited to tell you that we have over 300 founding members that are part of this community. I've got a lot of people on here today. The panel is all part of founding members. I see Michael, I see Mona. There's many more of you. Give a shout out in the chat if you are a founding member. Athea is a founding member. And so throw in the chat if you're a founding member, and let us kind of say that there's Scott. So we're starting to see that populate, which is fantastic. And so this community of founding members is coming together to figure out what this movement is and how we are going to shape education. And on our social media, Sophie's one of our social media managers and leaders, and she has got over I think LinkedIn. I looked, what is 2,500 LinkedIn followers, and a following on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. And so that generating awareness and is part of that. But coming together as a community outside of the human intelligence movement, but inside. And when I say external and internal, what's really important to me is that we have that human connection. And so the movement is a place where if you want to connect with like-minded educators, people who are thinking like you, really prioritizing human intelligence for our AI world, it's a place where there's networking, where there's professional development, where there's common conversation. And so it's an opportunity for you to be involved in something that really is going to make change. And it gives back to you. It gives you a space to be connected with others. Our last goal is a big one. Are you guys ready? Are you ready for it? Here it is. What we want to do is we want to shape the policies at the federal, state, and local level. And by that, I mean, we have been focused on accountability measures that measure our students on what they know. And we want to shift that to also prioritize the accountability to schools to measure what they're able to do, these skills, these essential skills, because we believe our workforce, our society must have these essential human intelligences. Otherwise, there's some really big things that we could start to talk about if we don't take time to build these human intelligences as AI continues to grow and evolve so rapidly. So we are set out to name what the intelligences are and figure out how do we measure human intelligences that cannot be replicated by AI, so that then our superintendents, our principals, our classroom teachers, our school boards can prioritize focusing on building these durable skills, these SEL skills, these soft skills in our classrooms. So those are our big goals. We want to generate awareness. We want to build a community of people that are solving problems and we want to impact policy. And so what I have done today is I've brought 3 founding members with us, with me today, and we are going to engage in a lively, challenging discourse. This is not your typical panel discussion because I selected 3 members with very diverse perspectives, different lived experiences and ideas that they're bringing. And so I'm going to have each person just introduce themselves briefly. I should tell you a little bit about myself. Like you, Athea, I just jumped right in, right? I am the co-president of the Human Intelligence Movement, and I'm the chief academic officer of ProSolve. I have been an educator for the last 30 years. I've been a classroom teacher, a building administrator, a district administrator. And I am loving working with this movement and building something that's grassroots. It gives me so much joy to work with volunteers that are committed to a cause and to watch people roll up their sleeves and put in time and effort to shape the future of education. So I'm going to turn it over to Sophie, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see Sophie and not me. Or not the screen. So Sophie, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie Theodoro. I'm calling in from Canada, and I kind of dove in head first 1 year ago, I guess last summer, into AI for education. I started creating videos on TikTok, and then that kind of I got in at the right time, and that kind of blew up there. And so I was still in the classroom, and then I'm taking a leave this year to work in ed tech and AI and content. And I'm just really passionate about AI being used to enhance our soft skills and responsibly, and just making it more accessible and safe for everyone. So nice to meet everyone.
Thanks, Sophie. Brian, I'll toss it to you.
Hey, Brian Arnold here, National University, media arts into ed tech, ed psych, just always involved in things that are technological and education intersections, and more lately, that third intersection of social emotional learning. So I'm excited to be a part of this group and a part of this discussion. Amy.
Well, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Oswald. My background is really in working with neurodiverse humans, and with that, a lot of assistive tech and just enjoying the ways that tech augments their learning. I noticed someone used that in the previous chat, and I love that word, especially in thinking about tech and AI and how we can, enhance the best of our human selves.
Terrific.
I've been I've been a teacher and administrator and floated around a lot.
Mm-hmm. So we've got great perspectives here, different ideas that are coming forward. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to tackle a couple big topics. We're going to go as far as we can in the time we have. But what's really important to us is that you also engage with us. So as I throw questions at this team to discuss, please put your ideas into the chat and push their thinking as well. If there's something that you don't agree with, put an idea to challenge that. I love that Lindsey already challenged the idea of soft skills, like reframing that to essential skills. I've never liked the term soft skills. It just sounds soft. And so essential skills is so much more powerful. I've been trying to use lifelong skills as well as a way to describe it. So that's the first topic we're going to dive into is what are these critical skills? And the panelists, our team, are going to talk about a couple of different questions about what are these skills, what is this opportunity that we have, and how can AI play a positive role? So I, again, like you to see the panelists, not my screen. I've put the questions in the chat. So take it away, team.
Absolutely. Just see.
I can jump in.
Sure.
So one of the things that keeps coming up, a phrase that I'm enamored of lately, is why should we bother to make alliances with the appliances? Like, why do we need to partner with these tools? And I feel like it or not, they're definitely going to be a part of our future. So we want to empower ourselves in a healthy way to wrestle with them and to engage with them and to understand how they work so that we can move forward. So the skills, some of the skills that we're going to need in the future, and we can't predict them because we don't know where things are going. Right now, today, snapshot, they're communication skills, because you have to be able to still communicate with the tool to get the results that you want. It's a systems thinking communication bundle. And I'm going to turn over the mic because I've talked too long already.
No, that's okay. I totally agree. I always think of AI and even like large language models as more of a communication skill rather than a technical skill. I'm not the one programming them, just the user, right? So, and then that translates to being able to communicate in person. And AI can't smile, it can't laugh, it can't build relationships, real relationships with people. So I think just encouraging problem solving, proper communication, and all of those other critical, essential skills, not soft skills, are super, super important as we navigate further into an AI world.
I'm glad you brought that up. I work a lot with the engineering folks. Amy, I'm sorry, I'll turn it over to you in a second. And there's sort of like, there's the technical stuff that they do, and then sort of all the kind of worthless soft stuff that other people take care of that makes the world go round. And so there's definitely sort of navigating that bias for sure. Amy?
Well, I think the second question really resonates with me in thinking about the opportunities that exist, particularly working with families and children that have neurodiversity in their profile. There's a lot of concern, a lot of worry about foundational reading skills, about foundational math skills. And that's where that like let some things go to grow comes in. And so I'm really interested in how we start looking at what are truly foundational skills and what does that really mean. It is hugely impactful for our neurodiverse humans because they end up spending a lot of their time working on those foundational skills and are pulled out of important content and important art and all the beautiful things that make us human to work on those skills. So I'm really excited to have an opportunity to not have to pull my kids out and to really have them be part of everything that's happening.
Amy, if I could yes and that, I literally was having a conversation with someone earlier today about how these tools can specifically address that community's needs, especially in rural areas, especially in places where there just aren't enough resources to go around, that there's this virtual tutor aspect that can work with people that have those needs. And there was sort of the chrysalis analogy of the safe space in which to ask questions to grow, to avoid that social risk that keeps so many of us from asking for the information that we need to move forward. And I'm going to throw out one more human skill that's really necessary right now, and that's accountability. You can't hold an AI accountable. And so being that person on either end of the input or the output that's accountable, that's not going to go away. We need that.
So when you say us, I haven't thought about accountability as a skill before. And so I'm kind of trying to wrap my mind around that, Brian. So is that like, so the skill would be me being accountable to what? To just anything? Is that the
That's a
skill?
great question because it makes no sense. But so what I'm really saying is that you have to, the skill is proofing before you share, in other words. So the skill is the habit of mind, the habit of work, where before you take that automated summary that AI generated of this meeting and share it with everyone as a summary of this meeting, is you do the boring, tedious work of checking to make sure that everything that I said isn't attributed to Sophie, or vice versa, So that's my example.
Yeah. And everyone talks about the 80-20. Like you can have AI do 80% of it, but you need to put in that human touch. You need to oversee everything and take accountability if you're going to use AI and do your due diligence. Because again, I guess I'm technically a Gen Z, but I always say like AI just fell out of the coconut tree. It has no context. You need to provide it context. You are in charge of if you're going to use it, how you're going to use it. And there's just a lot of human skills that really go into using it effectively for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I see. Vanessa pushed back on accountability and got some likes for it. More mindful, self-aware. Yeah, I love it. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Oh, she said not accountability, more mindful mindful, self-aware. I think you're bringing up something to really dig into and explore. And one of the things I think about often with human intelligence is there are skills. I'm learning how to communicate. I'm learning to communicate clearly and listen actively, but I have a mindset around being self-aware. And I sometimes try to tease out what is a mindset versus what is a skill. What I wanted to just go back to, well, one thing I saw in the chat is Alex put in here, one thing he'd love to see more of is hands-on project-based learning, experiential to learning to develop those skills. And I think that's a huge opportunity, as similar to what Amy was talking about, not only for our neurodiverse learners who now maybe don't have to have remediation on foundational skills, but there's also this opportunity for all learners to not have to all be having that skill and drill or that direct teaching moment all day, because information is at their fingertips. And now it's about learning how to have the process of learning. How do I engage in a problem solving or problem-based learning, project-based learning, and I'm applying versus having to have that knowledge acquisition. It's something I see huge opportunities, and I think Alex, you probably agree. Greg's got something to say, so Greg, share with us.
Hi, sorry, I was invited by an external member, so I'm sorry, this is a freak entry. I'm also part of the Human Intelligence Pivot, so I had a question. I believe it was about the opportunities that exist. So just a little preface. I built an app kind of helping teachers like automate trivia and like make games for lessons on topics. And we found that parents started using it. And I know there can be a lot of like disconnects between parents, students, expectations. So do you see that AI can fit into like bringing parents into the learning and kind of like, hey, back like 2 years ago, these parents didn't know calculus because they didn't remember it, but now they have AI to help them with their students, so or their children. So how do you see that kind of fitting in to like homeschooling or like
Well,
complementary learning?
if I could jump in for a quick sec, that we launched an online school that launches next week. And part of our model is really driven on family and parent engagement and caregiver engagement. And one of the pieces that you're signing up for if you're enrolling in our school is a weekly meeting with families, family teacher meeting. And that is an opportunity for us to individualize, to differentiate, and to teach parents and families how to do that at home. So some of those skills that we're talking about that pull our neurodiverse kids out of content, families can work on those at home. They need someone to help them with the pacing and the guiding. And that's where AI can help. That's where human AI caregiver triangle can help. But I think you're 100% right that parents, caregivers home really need to be part of what we're doing and make it a triangle.
It looks like Athea has a comment, but I do have a pushback part, perhaps, if we wanted this to be a lively discussion.
Let's
looking at it through the lens of human nature. If the parent needs to help their child learner with calculus and they're not good at calculus, there's this tool that can then do the calculus for them. I assert that most parents will say, I don't know it, use the tool, rather than partnering in that exploration process. Ideally, it's what we just talked about. In reality, I'm not so sure without proper scaffolding.
Well, I think like looking out 10 years from now, what is happening in education and looking at the trend, at least currently, like there is huge trending of micro schools and homeschooling. And that tells me that parents want to be involved. And it also tells me that we're not involving them in the right ways. So I think we assume a disconnect from home, and we should assume a connect and figure out the ways that we can do that. We can do that virtually. So schools can do this, and we're choosing not to, is really my thought on it.
You know what it makes me think of, Amy, is are we not being culturally responsive? So what is it about our traditional practices of homeschool connection and assumptions we hold based on our own lived experiences, where we're maybe not being as inclusive to the way parenting is done today, family cultures, And so I think you could be onto something there. And is there something specific you're doing to try to involve parents or engage them more?
Well, one of the things we're doing is having some guest speakers who will also then help grease the wheels for our philosophical stance and those kinds of things. And my teaching team's been starting to use PlayLab a lot and creating apps that we have taken away all student identifying information, but created almost personal apps for kids that are based on their psych ed eval. So if they have a slower processing speed, and so really creating this holistic student so that the app is really focused on that kid and how they learn. And then our goal is to help parents learn how to use that with their child and directing it from that way.
I love that partnership. Athea, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I wanted to highlight this comment and bring this to the attention of the panel that Dr. Elsa Fries said problem solving and critical thinking around how to use AI is so critical, which makes me think about part of what I said in the beginning of this Mindful AI Summit is what are these positive collaborations between AI and HI. So when we think about the how, there is some knowledge acquisition on the actual technical side. How am I using this? And what human intelligence skills do I need to use this through a critical lens? As she says, putting some human guardrails around that. So I'm pausing there. If you guys could speak to that, that would be great.
I feel like I'm always diving in. Anyone else want to take a shot at it? Too late. I'm talking. So one option is the idea of these walled gardens, that there's a space where only the information that the institution, the family, what have you, wants to be input and output is shared within this little ecosystem, and it doesn't go outside of that. There was another piece. Shoot, the question was complex.
Yeah. Can you reframe the question, Brian? Or your understanding, or maybe even Athea?
Yeah. So when we think about, so we talked about heading from knowledge acquisition to skills development, and in that context, there's still some knowledge acquisition that needs to occur, correct? Particularly when we're looking at the technology side of things with AI, how are we using it? There's some knowledge acquisition that must occur, because what I'm seeing, for instance, is that we don't know how to use it. We, generally speaking, if I'm thinking about students in the classroom or parents, that maybe there's some resistance, there's some friction, there's some mindset issue around it. How do we use it, and how do we use it in a way that we are using that human intelligence skill of critical thinking? How can I harness the power of this AI chatbot to help me to augment my own intelligence in a way that's going to help me succeed and have those skills that I need, those future ready skills? So I'd like to talk about, like, what does that collaboration look like in a practical way in the classroom? If I'm talking about some AI powered tool and the HI tool that I need, what does the conversation look like, or what am I seeing in the classroom actually happening around that? Does that make sense?
It does, because here's, I've talked a couple times, we've talked about knowledge acquisition. Now we don't need foundational skills. Well, we need, in order to make that a reality, for example, we got to learn how to have students learn how to leverage the AI tool effectively, is what I'm hearing you say. So what human intelligences allow for the leverage of AI effectively? And I think you talked about critical thinking. We talked about it at the beginning too, like discernment. We talked about that on the podcast. But Brian, you sort of brought up that being accountable to it or discerning the information. What other kind of AI literacy skills, human intelligence skills will students need? I'm curious what you think, Sophie, as the person that was most in the classroom with students. How would you have approached that this year if you were in the classroom?
Absolutely. I think another really good skill to learn is, what are the tasks that I should have AI help me with? And then what are the tasks that I shouldn't? And sometimes that can be hard to discern between the two. So developing some sort of checklist or criteria or rubric, like, hey, can AI enhance my thinking and enhance my knowledge acquisition? Or is it kind of just like a substitution in this case? Like, where can I use it that it'll benefit me, but it also requires my own human skills? So I think that is a skill, like a human skill in itself. There's lots of ways, there's lots of things I don't use AI for, there's lots of things I do use AI for. That's probably where I would start with my students. But yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had more time to explore last year with my students, but I had 6 computers for 31 kids. So
Oh, wow. You're
yeah.
making me think too, just really quickly, if I can drop this in as well to make this connection of Michelle, you and I also talked about this on the podcast, the higher order thinking skills. And then how are we bringing AI in that conversation? So just as we synthesize information in a novel that we might be reading or science journals that we might be reading, we also need to be able to synthesize, analyze, and evaluate how we relate to this AI technology, because those are higher order thinking skills that are being used to think about how I would even use this to augment my own use of it and enhance my own intelligence with it.
Exactly.
There's a book out by a woman named Naomi Barron, I believe. She's a linguist at American University, called Who Wrote This? And in the opening, one of the things that she talks about is making decisions that override AI or override any kind of tech, just even spell check. So she gives the example of writing "the Indian boy won the spelling bee" and it trying to spell check correcting it to the Native American, but she meant the boy from India.
Oh.
She has enough knowledge to know to override that, to be like, okay, I know what I mean and I can fix it. If our students, humans, people don't have enough background knowledge or content or just human intelligence, they won't have the confidence to override it. And that's a piece I think that it really needs the critical thinking.
That's great. I'm looking at the time and it's flying by. And I told you we had like 4 themes and we could talk all day probably on this theme, but I want to move us to this next theme, which is really about the impact that AI has on human connection and authenticity. And this is something the human intelligence movement is deeply concerned and thoughtful about, is how, in what ways is AI taking away personal human connection and authenticity? And the inverse then also is, how can we empower AI users to ensure that tools are supporting our learner well-being and building that human connection? So let's kind of shift our thinking from skills to human connection. You want to start, Sophie?
Sure. Okay, so I'm just gonna re-reference that. So where is AI taking away the personal human connection? Yeah, and authenticity. So I know there was a discourse on LinkedIn a few weeks ago about there was an AI tool that released a teacher clone chatbot, and it kind of it caused a lot of controversy in the AI for education space on LinkedIn about people thinking they maybe took it a step too far almost, when you can't they didn't want people thinking that AI could really replace the teacher. And I think the name, the teacher clone, wasn't the best thing. It was an AI tool meant for distance learning. It was meant for when your teacher wasn't there and you had a substitute and you had a question, or it was meant for at home when you have a question, what kind of citations do I do for this assignment? It wasn't actually supposed to be the teacher. But I think that struck a lot of people's nerves, because once they saw that human element taken away from the AI, from their own profession, teaching, a lot of people weren't very happy with it. And I know the company ended up changing the name and reevaluating. But that was super interesting to see. Absolutely.
I wonder if we're talking about the same company that also kind of said, you don't need your teacher anymore. Just ask my bot and the bot will replace the teacher. It's a really big company that a lot of teachers get the tool from, and it's supposed to be magical.
Yep. Yeah. But at the same time, we need to think about, okay, this is essentially a ChatGPT wrapper. What skills is the teacher learning by using that tool? Not really any. Like, so when AI progresses at such a rapid pace and the landscape changes, you have no skills. You just typed in make me a lesson plan on photosynthesis. You actually aren't really using AI. You are just using an app. And I think, yeah, it's not related, but I think being able
I
to.
know. Now I want to go down this rabbit
I
hole
know, I
because
know.
I just like have to say, how is that? Like, I just get so concerned that
Yeah.
that is going to continue to keep traditional practices in place. And like the
Yes.
teacher efficiencies will just do better and better at multiple choice questions and quizzes, and will do better at getting lecture-based experiences. So now you opened a whole can of worms that I know Brian and Amy would love to talk about. So
Yeah.
guys, you want to talk about student wellness, and you want to talk about human connection, or where should we go?
Well,
Well, I'll take it back quickly just to human connection in that I don't think AI is the responsibility for human connection. I think there are lots of ways that human connection has changed with technology over time. If you've read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, there's a lot of conversation about phones and that loss. And one of the things I liked about his kind of presentation of that is the idea of having friction. That's what we need. I think that's when tech takes away so much friction that you don't get to have some of those interactions because you can just go back to your tech. That's where I think it's a loss. And then I think having the flip side of that, of having someone that you can go to help you have a conversation with a friend that can help you connect better with somebody is great. You know, maybe I don't scream at my sister as much because I put it through ChatGPT. Maybe not.
What
love
do you
those
think,
examples.
Brian?
So a lot. So I think I end up being devil's advocate here, but that's okay. So the invention of the pen was meant to be the death of thought because people could quickly write things down without having to really think about them before they committed them to paper and shared them to others. So there's this romanticizing of sort of the way we used to do things. So the human connection, the way that we used to connect with each other is the gold standard for some reason. And the future way is scary and different and bad. So I think that we have a balance here, a trade-off and opportunity cost. When things are made easier, we lose out on the opportunity to develop grit and resilience, but there's also an efficiency, and what we can do expands. The connections that we can make with our virtual friends might be life-saving, might be the difference between feeling isolated or feeling reassured. It might also take up the space that would have been taken up by a real person. So it just, it's the whole big it depends, I guess, is really to me the big headline for how will this technology impact our relations? Given the way humans have behaved all the time, will people use it poorly? Do they lack self-regulation? Well, yeah. But we'll do the best we can to make it as pro-social as possible. In the same way that if you ate every meal in McDonald's, McDougal's, you probably wouldn't be very healthy, but you're supposed to exhibit some self-regulation that's expected of you. So Greg, I think, is ready to jump
Yeah.
on board.
What are you thinking, Greg?
Bad idea because I've seen Sophie's GPT wrapper ads on LinkedIn. I'm one of those builders.
Uh-oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So where did I cut off before I began?
You're one of those builders of the GT wrapper.
Yeah. So I mean, the big joke is like, what is Facebook? Well, it's like a database wrapper. So it's like, yes, it makes a lot of sense where people are like, it's a GPT wrapper. What does it do? And it's a really great question. And now I forgot what I was going to say in response to it. But okay, so Sophie, I'm curious to hear your kind of response to like the Industrial Revolution. Like, if people said the same thing about tractors, like, okay, now people aren't sowing the ground by hand. Like, are they learning? Is it better? Like, there could be pros and cons to both. So I'm curious to see how you see it looking in like 10 years versus like, okay, maybe we shouldn't go this way, maybe we should. So how do you feel about that?
100%. Yeah. No, and I think some programs are GPT wrappers, they're just pre-prompted, but then other programs, kind of like your app, are gamification that will be hard to create on your own. So I think it depends, right? Like if it's just create a multiple choice question bank based on this web page, yeah, not great. But if it's an AI tool that can use an LLM to generate a Kahoot for a teacher really fast, or a game or a trivia, that's excellent. And I think that's something that could be used without needing to know how to prompt or whatever. I just think it really depends. And I also think it's important for us not to put all our eggs in one AI tool or one basket. So yeah, when I'm talking about ChatGPT wrappers, it's just the really, really basic ones that literally anyone can use. But I think if there's an added value there, like gamification or interactivity, then that's huge. That's awesome. And admire all the work you're doing, Greg.
Cool. Okay. Geez. I wasn't expecting that. And I was just kidding. I love your work. But yeah,
Oh,
awesome.
yeah. No, yeah, all good.
Craig, now we all have to know what you do. So drop your
Wow.
app in the chat or your website so we can kind of see what this gamification app is all about. I'm going to move us to something that I think really connects with what Lindsey was talking about in the first hour. And I know what we'll be hearing about from Elsa with alongside, which is really about how AI can support learner well-being. And I think this first question is really thought-provoking about AI and the pace moving so quickly. The wondering, is it causing anxiety for students as they think about their future? I mean, think about it. If I'm sitting here saying our schools are failing our kids and they're not going to have this human intelligences that can't be replicated by AI, what are kids thinking and feeling, and what does that do? I'm really curious what Brian, what and each of you think about this.
I'll go really quickly. My neighbor he's going into grade 5, and he calls me a robot because I talk about AI all the time. So he calls me robot, but he's like, Sophie, I really wanted to be a teacher, but now I don't think we'll have teachers when I'm old enough. I'm like, why? He's like, well, it'll just be AIs. Like it'll just be chatbots. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think I think it'll look different, but I think you can still be a teacher, and you might not be teaching grade 6 in the way that you thought you would. But I said, you can never replace the human connection. But for a 10-year-old to be worrying about that right now, he's very mindful, but I was like, don't worry. But yeah, like they're getting a little worried for sure. Absolutely. If anyone wants to go next.
Amy, thoughts?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think kids are worried. I think we're all worried. And even if kids weren't worried, when their parents and caregivers and people around them are worrying, they're going to worry as well. And you can't prevent them from getting information, hearing information. And I think that's why the adults do need to have a plan and ability to communicate with our kids that things change. We always think change is going to be this big, giant, huge thing, but it really comes very slowly, and they aren't even going to necessarily notice. You know, if I look back at the changes over my lifespan, they're huge. But if I look at the changes over a year, you know, it's much different. So I think providing them with that ability to look at the present and to look a little bit out into the future. I think another thing that I really advocate for teaching kids is future thinking skills, and just being able to live a little bit in the future to get more comfortable with that, to take back some of that anxiety.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I know you've got things to say about well-being and how AI can support that. Do you want to kind of pivot us to that question?
Sure. Well, really quick on the previous topic,
Sure.
you probably heard of VUCA, that the world is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So that's already a thing. So I'm kind of two minds about what the younger learners are feeling. Uh, we've already feel like it's uncertain. On the other hand, it's just normal for them. Like this is the way it has always been. Not that it's great, but it's not all that different. What I think that the handoff there was a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about with different groups is humane emerging technologies, and just sort of our ability to be a digitally literate academy that can get a seat at the table to help inform the shape of these tools as we move forward. That most of them, I'm painting with a wide brush, are designed to harvest the users as data. Just throwing it out there. But what we would probably like is for these tools to be designed to promote and empower the well-being of the users and our learners. So the more that we can empower ourselves by attending conferences like this, by playing with the technology, by having these discussions with each other and the kids down the street or whoever, the more you can do that, the more that we can say, hey, this tool that you're offering does work for this reason, doesn't for that, regardless of the market forces that are involved. That's my 5-second elevator pitch on that one.
Well, and I think you're getting quoted, humane emerging technologies right there in the
Love
chat.
it.
Thank you, Athea. I think you're bringing us into this next topic around ethical and privacy considerations, where when we talk about what do we need to be aware of with conscious consent when using AI, and what safeguards do we need to have in place when using tools for mental health and wellness. Who wants to speak to some of those thoughts?
Yeah, I can start with that. I have a personal example. So the division I work in, we haven't done anything regarding AI, no education, no policies, nothing quite yet. I guess there's other priorities, not more important, but other priorities. So I kind of was like the leader in my school, but then that leaves the door open for teachers to be using ChatGPT without really knowing how to use it. So, for example, one teacher used ChatGPT to communicate with a newcomer family, but she used it to translate to their language in their language. And so she copy and pasted the emails, and she was like, this is awesome. Like I don't need a translator. I can just communicate via email and translate it to Romanian and whatever. And then ended up becoming a thing. Principals got involved because it was some behavior problem. And then she got reprimanded for using ChatGPT because student names were involved in those emails, which we all know we shouldn't be doing. But she is grade 1 teacher. She doesn't really use technology that much. She had no idea that that was even a rule. So I think like most of us would know that, but she again didn't even know that. And so she got in big trouble unfairly. But that's the thing, like this stuff is out there. If you're not blocking it on the servers, you need to at least educate your staff on the guardrails and the bare minimum of what you need to know regarding ethics and privacy, because otherwise they don't mean any wrong by it, but they don't know any better. And that's not saying all teachers, but that was just one friend I had last year, and it all worked out. But now she knows not to use it for that. So
Mike gave you a shout out, Sophie, about really making sure we're figuring out how to support our teachers with clarity, like clear is kind, to quote Brene Brown, that just
exactly.
be clear. And her intentions were good. And when you know
Exactly.
better, my favorite is when you know better, you do better.
Exactly. So clear and simple for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think I love that example too, and I don't mean to demean anyone by this analogy, but there's this idea of like a toddler with a handgun, that you want to be sure that when you're handing someone a powerful tool, they understand how not to accidentally hurt someone with it. And so that kind of goes back to the question about what skills might be necessary. In terms of like privacy and rights, something that's come up is there's an article that was published today on personhood, like what is a bot, what is a real person, and what do people have the right to know about who they're dealing with. So I heard someone in a meeting earlier today talking about they were chatting with something online and they're like, are you a person or a bot? And it said, I'm an expert. So yeah, everyone's kind of like, wait a minute, instinctive cringe, right? So I think there's an emerging need to, and a right that needs to be protected, that we know we are speaking to a real person or not. I don't think it will interfere with that communication, but I think we as people, humans, want to know, are we dealing with a human intelligence or an artificial one? And just sort of put it in that bucket for now.
Well, and it's so hard to tell. I don't know about you guys, but I get on things and sometimes I can totally tell that I'm talking to the knowledge bank or the AI bot, right? But sometimes I'm kind of left wondering, and I don't want to wonder. So I think you bring up a good point. And, Brian, you talked about okay, help me.
Conscious.
Conscious consent.
Yes. And so let's talk about that, because that's a little bit about what we're talking about, and how does that look like? What does that look like in the classroom?
Did you want me to talk about it? Or did you want to? Yeah, just that, that our culture so one of the things, we're living through the Wild West, right? We don't have norms and behaviors associated with a lot of these things. We don't even have rules or laws associated with many of these things. So again, our ability to empower and shape our culture so that before we introduce a tool, we make sure everyone understands what they're doing and what they're using. We're all aware, we've all agreed that this is what we're going to be doing. We've all agreed to the rules of the game, and that there's something we've generally agreed to representing that. The analogy I like to think of is, and I know no one reads it, but the end user license agreement, right? Like if you're going to use this tool, you're agreeing to these things. Now it shouldn't be 800 pages of 7-point font that no one reads, but we should have some sort of social contract that's very clear and recognizable that this is what's happening and I understand and I agree.
All right. Well, you've each got 30 seconds to leave this group with something memorable that you're thinking about as we synergize human intelligence and AI. So what are you going to say? Who's first? How do we close this out? What do you want to
Well,
write?
that's a lot of pressure.
I know.
I was just going to say that's a lot of pressure. And so that's what I'm going to leave you with. That's too much pressure, Michelle. Thanks.
I love it. Sophie, I know you can do this because you're like, you got 30 seconds on TikTok. What do you tell them?
Yeah, sure. I think this was a really, really insightful conversation. I love the collaboration from the audience, and I think it's something that could not be done by AI bots, and it took 100% human intelligence. So there you go.
Brian, what are you thinking?
Just because I had this ready to go, just to keep in mind not to anthropomorphize the tool. Like we all have names for our cars. We all have this sort of desire to see a person in there and have a human connection. But it's important in order to understand the tool to understand that it does not have intention. It's not trying to thwart you. It's not trying to help you. It's merely doing what it's programmed to do.
Amy, I'm going to circle back around. Anything else?
I appreciate the opportunity to be here and with all of the knowledge happening here. Thank you.
Well, my closing is join the movement. This group, this community needs you. We need all like-minded folks to join us. I put the chat of follow us on social media, go to our website. We are still accepting founding members. Our launch is scheduled for the beginning of November, November 7th, 8th, and 9th. And so look for information about that. And it has been so fun. And AI wouldn't have done this. And so just thank you, Sophie, Brian, Amy. Thanks for all the audience participation. And I'll turn it back to you, Ithia.
It's been great. Thank you, Michelle, and all of our panelists, Sophie, Amy, Brian. What a great conversation. And second, what everybody, like especially Sophie and Michelle, AI could not have us come to a space here and have this kind of conversation and the connection and the feeling of just like this childlike curiosity to know and grow and learn and have so much joy in the process. So thank you all for being here with the Human Intelligence Movement. We are going to take a short break. Stay in the Zoom room because we're going to close out with a presentation from Dr. Elsa Fries of Alongside, and she will be coming up right at 3 o'clock. So we're just going to take a quick 4-minute break, go grab some water, stand up and stretch, take a mindful breath here really quick, and we'll start right at 3 o'clock. So I will see you back. You could turn your video on off, and everybody's pretty much muted. So I'll see you guys in just a few minutes.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, that was a really short break, but I hope everybody is back in the Zoom room. I just want to make sure, Elsa is here. So, yeah, I see you. Don't worry, you don't need your slides just yet. I just want to welcome everybody back. And gosh, I'm so excited about this conversation. I almost feel like we need to have a follow-up at some point in time, maybe in the spring. I'm going to just plant that seed. But before we dive into our final session with Dr. Elsa Fries of Alongside, I do want to take a mindful moment to express some gratitude. So if you could take about 30 seconds in the chat and just share something that you're feeling grateful for in this moment. I'm grateful for, and pop that into the chat. Let's take 30 seconds to share what we're feeling grateful for. As we do that, I am going to just show the slide of, oops, there we go, of Dr. Fries's presentation, how AI-powered tools can enhance human-centered, work. There we go, human-centered work. So again, taking about 10 more seconds, sharing in the chat. I am grateful for this book I will receive. I'll share mine verbally. I'm just really grateful for this community and for this summit today. So as we take just a few more seconds, I'm going to stop my screen share so Dr. Fries can share her slides, and I'll make you co-host, Dr. Fries, or am I making Margot co-host?
I'll share my slides.
Okay, I'm going to make you co-host. So you're co-host now. Let me stop my screen share so you can bring up your slides, and you guys can still populate the chat. As she's getting her slides situated, just going to read a few of these. I'm grateful for friends and family. Dr. Free says, I'm grateful for how engaged everyone is in the thoughtful discussion. Agreed. I second that. Amber says being back at school and hearing about the students this summer. So that's awesome. Love that you're getting that book as well. Time and space to learn with you all. Yes, what a great opportunity. Sometimes we take for granted that time and space to learn, but I certainly feel that today. I see that you have your slides up, so I'm just going to pause and come on mute as we dive into our final presentation today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for welcoming me in. And this has just been such a great group and a great discussion. And I hope we continue to have an open discussion in our last session. So today I want to give you a little bit of a high-level overview of how we are using AI in mental health. We're then going to chat a little bit about how we use it specifically and alongside, and leave you with some final tips for how you evaluate new mental health resources if you are thinking about bringing on new resources at your school or district. So I am Dr. Elsa Fries. I am coming to this really actually from a public health lens. I previously worked in Kenya for about 8 years. And so I came to technology because I just saw that there was absolutely no way to overcome the provider shortage in low and middle income countries. And actually coming back post-pandemic, continue to see those struggles here as well. One quick plug here. We are going to be presenting research from a brand new hot off the press study that we conducted with Northwestern University on the effectiveness of alongside in September. Margot, do you mind dropping in? Oh, you already did it. Perfect. On September 18th. So to kick us off today, I have a Slido here. You can scan this with your phone and type in so we can all see your responses. You guys have also been doing such a great job of just responding in the chat. So whatever is easiest for you. I would love to hear from you all. What AI products do you know about or have you used? Napkin AI. Wait, Brian, what is that? Never heard of this. Magic School, Midjourney, Claude. Nice. Gemini, GPT. Love it. Fantastic. I'd also love to hear, what are some of your biggest concerns about using AI or AI-enabled products to support student well-being, their learning, their mental health? Oh, okay. Great. Unintentionally losing an essential skill. Yes. Tools with no guardrails to prevent hallucinations. Yep. So what happens when the AI says something that actually isn't true? Blatantly not true. Some will use it to circumvent their learning. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really important for us to start off this conversation with recognizing the concerns and where we're coming from. And because these are real, true concerns, there can be bad things that happen when we don't have guardrails to prevent the hallucinations. This can replace something, that a skill that they might be learning that we think should be helpful or that we learned in school and therefore everyone should know. Supporting the adults and supporting the children to learn and use how to access resources effectively. Also knowing what is truth over reliance. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I definitely share in all of those concerns. And I think part of our conversation today is we should talk about those. And how do we actually educate the next generation as well as ourselves on how to use AI as effectively as possible and to use it to its best capabilities and what it's actually good at doing. So part of why I think AI can be so scary is it does really feel like there is this black box of what goes on and happens that all of a sudden I get an output that can feel really human-like. And that to me, even the first time I was using it, I was like, well, wait, you really understand me? You really get what I'm trying to say, ChatGPT? That can feel incredibly unnerving. And so one thing I think is helpful is to try to unpack that box just a tiny bit. And I am not an expert. I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I came to technology out of thinking about how we can expand access to mental health support. I am not an AI specialist. But one way that I like to think about it is we're going to have large sets of information. That's going to be our input. We are going to use a specific type of model to then look at that data and give us an output in a way that many times can mimic human behavior. And so when I'm thinking about that, the key here is knowing the reliability of our input data. What are we actually using as the source of truth? How are we manipulating it? And then is the output actually in a useful manner for us? So those are the foundational questions I would ask kind of any product that I'm looking at. And I'll give you a quick example here. I am an avid horseback rider. I'm obsessed with horses. So I have to give one horse example here. So the first thing when I'm doing and looking at a product is I want to define the problem that I am looking for. So for me, I don't want my Instagram to show anything except horses. So I need an algorithm to only identify pictures of horses. The data that I could train that model on would be search Google, and I get hundreds of pictures of horses. Choose the right algorithm. We then train it in a way that we're increasing accuracy. And then we have to evaluate. Does it correctly identify a horse picture from a dog picture? So even if you guys are using things like ChatGPT or Claude AI, you can also think about this in your own application. So if I need to find a reference for a 2001 paper on the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder in infants, I can go to ChatGPT and they can give me that information. I know that they're just scraping the internet for that. I'm not quite sure if they have the correct data, we would hope. And then I can actually evaluate that. Okay, did they actually find the paper that I wanted to? And GPT is actually not that great at finding papers, but GPT is much, much better at helping you rewrite that angry email. Who mentioned that? I really resonated with the example of have ChatGPT just gently rewrite your email so it has a more proper tone. So Vanessa, is it my truth or is it merely my opinion? Yeah, I think it's all subjective. It is all subjective. And so I would really evaluate it as thinking about it for the specific problem that you are looking at. Is it sufficient for what you're trying to solve or what you're trying to do? So AI is already all around us. So Google Maps uses AI to pinpoint our location, but also look at years of traffic patterns at that one particular stoplight and figure out the time of day and how I can reroute you based on those historic patterns. If anyone has ever noticed that your Netflix recommendations, they actually change by what you watched, what you did on other platforms, but they also change by the time of day. We all have been using AI for years because it determines what goes in that spam folder in our email box. And my favorite, because I'm a psychologist and I'm not very good at spelling, is Grammarly. So anytime you're typing and you see that little thing pop up, that is that suggested word or the suggested correction, that is AI. Is that surprising to anyone? Or is everyone here, we're like, yeah, we know AI is around it. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So let's talk a little bit about AI in mental health. And I would love for you here to hear from you all. When we're talking about supporting students around their social, emotional, and behavioral health, what are humans really good at and what are humans not so good at? Listening. Are they good at listening or bad? It goes both ways. Okay, it's so true. Yeah. Humans, we are actually really bad at understanding and predicting risk. Yep. Yep. Consistency. Yes. Because we are engaging as ourselves, it's hard to always be consistent. You don't know what went on that morning. The kids didn't get out of bed. I'm in a bad mood. The coffee maker didn't work. Lots of things can impact our way we engage. Yeah, shedding our biases. Staying committed. Yeah, absolutely. Discipline. And so truthfulness. Yes. Yes. I love that Brene Brown quote around just be honest. That's the kind thing to do. It's really hard to do that. Beautiful. So I have seen kind of AI has been utilized in ways that humans are, we have some shortcomings. So the first one is in identification. And I think one of the biggest human limitations is we cannot process all the data in the world. We tend to also have a lot of recency bias. So what is in front of me right now is what is important and what I want to take in. And so thinking about different ways that AI has been used to support the identification is we've been able to look at predictors outside of students just like raising their hands and saying, hey, I need support. So, and these predictors can be really varied. So one of the recent studies I was looking at in 2020 was evaluating the length of tweets. And so adolescents with shorter tweets was correlated with having suicidal ideation. We also know that AI and machine learning in general has allowed us to take data sources from different things. So I can have video data. I can have a self-report questionnaire that you're filling out. I can look at your Facebook and get data from there and kind of create different ways of triangulating to increase our accuracy. And so one of the projects that I worked on when I was at Duke was actually the S2K Autism app. And so this is an app to help identify infants and toddlers with autism. And so you have the kids. We created almost kind of a video game with bubbles and watch the eye tracking, because we know that eye tracking can be correlated with autism symptoms. And so then after we have a very, very large data set, we're able to do some fancy computer work in that black box to, again, help us predict the risk of autism. One of the red flags here we always want to think about is how reliable is that data source? And what is kind of our gold standard that we're evaluating that against? So one of the interesting articles this spring was using analysis of social media language predicts depression severity for white Americans, but not Black Americans. Why do you think that might be? Yeah, the biases of not having the full picture in all stories, programmer bias, absolutely. We also know that mental health and our identity, it's very personal. And there are a lot of different ways that we express we are in distress based on our culture. And so what's interesting that they actually found in this study was the more severely depressed Black Americans were not on social media. It's not there. That data set didn't really even exist. And so it's something that's really important for us to always think about of, is it incomplete training data? Are we basing this, or are we, evaluating this against just one predominant culture? How can we capture the nuances that make up everyone's lived experience? Okay. Anyone here love taking notes and doing case notes and just, yeah, paperwork, writing emails? It's great. Okay, glad I'm not alone here. So one of the other ways we hear about AI and mental health is around case management. So that can be helping to do auto case notes. That there are products out there that are HIPAA, FERPA, and COPA compliant. You have to be careful in selecting them, but they do exist. Using that session recording, scoring those measures if you're doing IEP plans. I do not miss those days of doing IEP plans. So maybe if I had this, it would be easier. But thinking of this as when we work alongside the human, I still have to check like the WIS scores. I still have to check that data. But does it free up my mind and my time to actually have more time in front of the student? Yes, because if I'm not overburdened with all of these other tasks, I can actually focus on doing that human-centered work. So someone brought up in the chat that we're not always good as humans about truthfulness and feeling and making people feel uncomfortable. And so one of the studies in 2021 did find that AI did a better job of predicting the effectiveness of a therapy session and kind of remove that barrier of saying like, hey, this is what you did great. This is what you did not so great. And actually, Tim Althoff out at University of Washington, who is the author behind the second article that I mentioned, is that what he and his lab has actually done is to actually provide real-time feedback to lay counselors providing tech support and actually increase their empathy. So a lot of times, let's be real, it's hard out there. I myself have gotten very, very burnt out being a provider. And so having that in time little flag that pops up, just like, hey, you might just want to lean in with a little bit more empathy and a little less advice. They actually saw that their peer supporters were much more open to that coming from an AI than from a person, because it kind of made it not personal. It's like, great, it's just the computer telling me. And so creating that distance was actually really helpful for the group of lay counselors that he was working with. Okay. Anyone familiar with mental health chatbots? Drop in the chat any chatbots you are familiar with. Any ever chat owl? Fantastic. Alongside, amazing. Anyone ever tried out Wobot or Wysa? Okay. So another common area of how AI is augmenting the way that we're preventing or providing mental health support has been the chatbot revolution. And so this was actually started a while ago. We're going to go through the history of chatbots. So it's very fun. And there has been some research, some really well done research actually, on the effectiveness. And so the graph that we can see here, they actually compared PHQ-9, PHQ-8. So if you're not familiar with that, that is a standard measure of depression severity that we use with adolescents and adults. And we compared it to a CBT skills group where you got group-based therapy compared to a one-on-one chatbot 6-week intervention, and found that the chatbot intervention led to significantly a greater decrease in some symptoms compared to the skills group. Anyone surprised by that? I was surprised. I'm not gonna lie. My job is to create a chatbot, and I was still surprised by this. Because for me, there is that level of, that like, I'm with you in a group and I want to, like that human connection piece. And I think part of it, I've gotten to talk to the group who did this study a tiny bit. And I was like, what is the magic? But the personalization and the ability to really feel like that safe space, and I'm applying it to myself, whereas in the group, there's like a lot of the group dynamics, and what if I don't like someone in the group, and was one of kind of their theories. But we'll see. There's no good actual data on why. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of AI chatbots. So the first AI chatbot was actually developed by Joseph Weizenbaum, who developed the ELIZA chatbot to simulate a Rogerian therapist. And a Rogerian therapist is basically an approach where we try to ask you kind of staged insight questions for you to actually come up with your own solution and to have thoughtful reflection. It is still out there. You can Google and play around with it. You will see its limitations. Coming through kind of the early 2000s, we saw a lot of digital therapy programs. So we had the first computerized CBT therapy program that really had a lot of evidence behind it, the Beating the Blues program. And then really, we did not see a lot of generative AI until we kind of hit this 2021, 2022 landmark. And some of the older AI products or chatbots that have been around have been predominantly using pre-written texts that are just displayed based on what you say. So the decision on what text to show is made using an AI algorithm, whereas generative AI is more commonly, is kind of very early emerging as can it actually make those decisions of what to say as well? And how do we pair kind of our internal AI models with existing generative AI models such as Claude or ChatGPT so that we can harness all of the data that those larger models have while making sure that it's super safe, has lots of guardrails, and is not just, as some of you said, that just wrapper, that very like little wrapper. One way that I like to think about it right now is generative large language models such as GPT and Claude, Anthropic. They're very good at knowing the what of like what is mindfulness-based stress reduction. Great little paragraph. Amazing. Write me a little thesis on it. Fantastic. Actually, how to do that? Not so great. Because in our training data, no one's like, yeah, but when you do this, first you need to do this, and then you need to da, 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 da. And so when we're thinking about merging art and science, it's really about, can I take kind of that data set and can I merge it with the art of that human interaction that we would hope everyone could have. Okay. People familiar here with the MTSS framework? Okay. Where do you guys see kind of AI coaching fitting in within an MTSS? I already put it up here, but thoughts on this? Nice. All areas can be included and partnered. Fantastic. Yeah, so when we were really looking at creating alongside, you know, the first thing I really like to do is look at the landscape and define some of the challenges. And are these challenges that we need a human solution to, a tech solution, or a human tech enabled solution? So yeah, fills the gaps with caseload challenges. What are some of the challenges that you all see in your schools around supporting youth mental health? What are some of the biggest barriers or challenges? Staffing and time, absolutely. Oh, finding the right communication channel. Absolutely. The amount of resources that are needed. They come once, never to be seen again. Absolutely. Please just show me your face one more time. Knock on my door. How could I make it like bigger and wider and more open? We used to lure kids in with lots of squishmallows. It's the favorite. Yeah, so many students, not to help, not enough humans. Yeah, these were exactly the ones that we were kind of seeing too. We heard from students that one, they wanted a confidential space. They like maybe wanted to go in to see a counselor, but honestly, a lot of their day-to-day struggles, they're like, this is going to be embarrassing. I don't want to bring that up. And so kind of for those things like my girlfriend just broke up with me, or my friend is being a jerk and we'll probably get over it in a second. But, you know, I might make things worse and have a fight and throw a chair first, but, you know, we'll get over it. You know, do I really want to come to someone? And then if I do want to come to someone, can they actually be there? I wish we could clone every school counselor and social worker and LPC in the United States. But we can't. We're about 100,000 mental health providers short in the United States. For comparison, my graduate program, 2 of us graduated in a year. So yes, yeah. Yeah, there's no time to build a relationship and trust. Absolutely. So we heard that, you know, from schools, we just don't have the staff. We heard from students, we want something confidential, but we also want an easy way to reach out if I do need extra support. And then we also heard that, you know, we want it to be kind of fun and engaging and feel a little bit different than what's out there. And so that is part of what led to the development of Alongside. So we are a web and mobile app that's developed by myself, and I have 3 other amazing doctoral level clinicians who are on my staff who help develop all of the content and train our AI bot. And we want to provide that 24/7 mental health support, and we work predominantly with 5th through 12th grade. So they can engage with our chatbot. And so we have tried to take each of our unique clinical personalities and kind of put that in and our different approaches. And so we pull from CBT strategies, problem solving, dialectical strategies, acceptance-based strategies. Clark is a narrative therapist, and I've been learning all about narrative therapy from him, which is amazing. Oh my gosh, 1,000 per counselor, you cannot win. Vanessa, I am so sorry. So sorry. We also have mindfulness activities, mood tracking, journaling, and then we work alongside schools. So we are monitoring for anything around suicidal ideation, self-harm, abuse, homicidal ideation, and making sure those kids get connected to a school personnel or resource. And then we also provide data support responsive counseling. I get a lot of questions on why we don't go direct to consumer. We only work with schools. And part of that reason is for right now, we really want to work alongside the in-person services. So we want to know that if a kid is really struggling, we can get them that in-person support. Right. So here's another quick question. How do you decide which skills or mindfulness-based practices to use with a specific student? This could be a learning strategy if you're a non-clinician. That's how do you decide if you're working with someone one-on-one? I mean, with 1,000 students, I think it's probably like if you have one-on-one time, like whatever's on top, the worksheet. I cannot imagine. Yep. Great. Depends on what you're teaching. Absolutely. Lots of layers, student data, patterns, interests, skill sequence, right? There are times we're methodically building skills over time. Depends on the issue. Absolutely. Anxiety, goal issues, communication. So we kind of do some diagnosis and figure it out a little bit. Listening, huge. Listening longer to get more information and clarity. Absolutely. So there's that data gathering part of it. And why we actually I have come around to enjoying using AI is we are able to do a lot of that data gathering in a facilitated way that feels really more natural. I'm not giving you, here's my like screener of 45 questions, and then I'm just going to tell you what it is. I'm going to be looking at in the app, what else are you looking? Are you looking at videos on a certain topic? How are you feeling? I'm going to look at your mood tracker data. And then we're also going to be able to ask questions to get down to this kind of quote unquote diagnosis of just a day-to-day daily challenge. We are not clinically diagnosing. We are just getting to like, what is the core skill that we want to build? Yeah, assess the student needs, preferences, the longitudinal nature of it is really, really important. Absolutely. So after we've been, alongside has been around, so about 2 years. And so we have looked at around, let's see, this spring, we analyzed over 30,000 different chats of students. And we do not sell any of our data. We do not give our data. We do not make money over the data. The only reason we look at our de-identified student chat data is to really figure out how do we improve and continue to support, and what do we need to do in the AI and our other ways that we support students. So one of the core keys when looking across what actually leads to behavior change is we know that it needs to be personal and applied to them, to you. So if you think even of yourself, of trying out a new thing, you're probably going to need some motivation or some desire to do something. You're going to want to see like, well, how is this going to impact me? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? I'm going to probably make some predictions. I then need a knowledge base of like, what is the new thing I'm trying to do? How do I actually do that? Not just know about it, but put it into my real life. And then we follow up and see how it goes. Lindsey, thank you for the acronym. Psychologists, we love acronyms so much. We love them. I know. So when we think about how we can facilitate that conversation, this is really our framework. We first are going to really engage and provide that empathy and validation. We are going to help the user connect on how a specific skill is relevant to them. Provide them practical examples. Sometimes that means like, hey, let's just think about if your friend was really beating themselves up and saying to themselves they were stupid. Do you think your friend should do that? Do you think your friend? No. Great. Okay. What do you think your friend could say to themselves instead of, I'm so stupid, I failed that test? And like, again, this is a distancing strategy. Have them then apply it to their own life. We focus on the chat is really only 3 to 5 minutes, and then we put the skill into action. And then we follow up and celebrate progress, and we celebrate the effort, not the outcome. So taking that growth mindset. So again, emotions are fine. It is fine to be anxious. It is fine to be sad. It is okay. All these things are okay. We are here to just really focus on the students' goals and how they move through that. Anyone want to check it out real quick? Okay. Great. So I've been talking a lot, so let's maybe actually have a little mindful moment together. So I have come in here. What's interesting is we have anthropomorphized the AI into a llama. Part of this is it's really important for kids to know they're not talking to a human. And so we wanted a character that was clearly not a human. This is not going to be your best friend. and was clearly conveying to kids, this is safe, but you're not talking to a real person. So students can come in and build all different types of superpowers. So they can do things like starting a daily mindfulness practice will help them do that. How to take brain breaks throughout the day and stagger your work versus taking breaks. How to increase focus and decrease procrastination. Full-blown adult ADHD over here, use this all the time. Create study plans, sleep plans. And so these are our proactive skills that we work on. And then students can also talk about whatever those daily challenges are on their mind. So our very common topics are I have too much going on, I'm having a conflict or fight with a friend, I'm not motivated. Our middle schoolers definitely want to find a relationship. So they're like, how do I find a crush? What do I say to my crush? What am I doing? Like, talk to your parents about that one. But we actually find that 40% of the time, kids are talking to us about relationship issues. And so this is really when we're thinking about our goal is to have healthy, happy humans who know how to have those social skills to engage. They are coming to us day in and day out around like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to resolve this conflict. What do I say? What's going on? And so for us, we want to be able to teach them those skills so that then they don't need us. They don't need the llama anymore. Like, establish the friendships and relationships. Yeah, so kind of an example of how we're trying to use an AI instrument to build social connection. So we'll do this one really quickly together. So if I'm having a panic attack, first going to start with grounding, and join me if you would like. Just tap in and notice what you're feeling right now. So right now I feel the chair and my feet on the floor. And then we're going to pause and take a step back. First, we're going to do a cognitive exercise. Most kids roll their eyes when I try to do deep breathing. So we're going to count backwards for 30s by 3. And if you actually try to do this, I find this is really hard for me to do. It really slows my mind down. And then finally, we're going to do some gentle breathing. We do box breathing. In this case, we're just going to encourage gentle breaths with no constriction on how you should be breathing. So we check in, you'll notice we use very colloquial language. Another great way that we harness the use of AI is we change the reading level based on the grade that you sign up with. So we're able to provide slightly more complex language for high school students and simplified language for younger students. We're also able to provide alongside in 36 different languages, which is another way that we're harnessing technology to really think about it. And in case you're wondering, our teen interns told me that I could still keep in this GIF, and that was still cool. I don't know if I believe them, but we have an amazing group of teen interns and advisors who work with us to build all of our content. We also teach them skills. So they got to learn how to do prompt writing They got to learn how to do some design and learn things like Figma. And then at the end, we're going to have them do that small, simple, real life action. So because we are feeling anxious, doing breathing exercises each morning this week. Feels like a convo with a super chill therapist. This one was created by Dr. Guido Entenberg, and he is super chill. So it's coming through. I'm glad to hear. So I know I'm coming up on the end of my time with you. I'm sorry. I will wrap this up shortly. Let me. A few last closing thoughts is, looking at our data, we're predominantly working with low-income school districts who have over a counselor to student ratio of at least over 500 to 1. So these are students that don't have a lot of local resources and don't have a lot of in-person support there. In addition, this is Musab. He's one of our teen interns from last year. What we found in our data is that we actually found equal levels of engagement between our male, female, and non-binary students. And this was really surprising to us. We always hear it's like, oh, well, like, I can see how like all the girls would just want to talk, but like guys are going to roll their eyes at like, the neon kiwi llama thing. And I'm like, I roll my eyes at the neon llama sometimes. It's okay. But what it does mean is that it's providing that safe and confidential space. And we don't talk about mental health. We talk about what's going on in your life. So maybe it's you, I'm going to be very gender stereotyped right now. You lost the football game. And that's what you want to talk about. Great. We can talk about how to deal with disappointment in that situation just as much as someone who's dealing with grades or a family situation. So it's available. It's in 36 different languages. We hear qualitatively from our teams that not having to face someone really reduces that barrier. We're also in a predominantly around 65% of our users are Latino or Hispanic. And so hearing from those users around how there's not a general narrative around mental health in their home. And so this feels really safe and open, and that their parents wouldn't want them to go in person. And sometimes, because you don't want to be spread in that business. That's something I learned in my Southern family though. So another way is some of our data is showing is that if we make it really easy to open up, and then send information to a counselor, students will. So we used to have in the app that it was like, send a message to your counselor and you had to type in something. 2 kids did it ever. Type something in. Way too much. When we created an AI summary of the chat and said, hey, you did so amazing. Look at all this progress. Do you want to just send that to your counselor? 37% of students then share it. So thinking about the problem you're trying to solve and really thinking about how the tech can facilitate that and kind of move you closer. I think of like clinically like scaffolding, like it's that step by step process. It's not all one and done. And then finally, I'd love to leave you with a few kind of thoughts around safety. So the EdSafe AI Alliance is a great place to look at tools who are committed to safety. And some of the questions that I would ask is, how is the student data stored and protected? Are they making money off of that data or not? Who is the company accountable to? And does it follow FERPA COPA guidelines? Or if you're in a clinical setting, HIPAA compliance, of course. How accessible is the product for a diversity of users? So what about our neurospicy users? What about our students who speak a different home language, which a lot of times is your heart language? And then efficacy, who's creating the product, first and foremost? we're in a big, like a huge shift of innovation, and research takes time. So a lot of these early companies, you're not going to have research because you have to have a product to do research with. So at the earliest stage, who's creating the product? Are those mental health clinicians? Have they worked in schools? What are their credentials? I like to say, does it pass the sniff test, which is like, are they promising things that just seem outlandish? Or like, no, okay, I can see that. And then, of course, what research supports it, and are they moving towards that research base? So wrapping up here, if you guys have any final questions, please feel free to come off mute or drop them in the chat. I, of course, lost my chat screen for a second. A few upcoming preview of coming attractions. As I mentioned, on the 18th, Dr. Jessica Schleider, who's at Northwestern University, and I will be talking about our results. We ran a research trial this spring with 6 schools in New Mexico and Texas. And so we'll be able to share the data of what students are saying about Alongside and how Alongside is supporting reduction in anxiety and depression. And then our amazing partner, Dr. Natasha Scott, who's at Cumberland County Schools, is going to be presenting on leveraging AI in social work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fries. It was an amazing presentation. I love the technology that you have created using AI for students to engage with this mental health resource app. As I've said, I've used it in the free trial access that you get, and I love Kiwi so much. Super intuitive. It's a way for us, like for when I've used it, I'll just say for my personal experience, you know, when you are what I call in the red zone, you're offline, you can't really problem solve, you can't think, you just hop on and ask Kiwi, I'm in a conflict with a friend, what do I do? And it gives you a list of options, and you can pick options, and it just helps you problem solve. And again, it augments what you're able to do, because if you can't engage in that kind of prefrontal cortex thinking in the moment, which we can't when we're triggered, this is what Kiwi is doing. So it's that augmentation for you to be able to go through that process when a human is not available, and by the time you get through the end, now you're kind of coming back online a little bit. Maybe you've taken a breath and you can see things a little bit more clearly, and it gives you just a nice plan to put into place to try to problem solve whatever issue it is. So super awesome piece of technology. I can't wait to see what you guys continue to create. And it was a great ending to a really great summit here. Anybody, I just want to pause and see if anybody has any questions about what Dr. Fries presented, what Alongside is up to. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Taking about 20 seconds here. As you guys are thinking about questions, I'm just going to go back to my quick screen share up here. So as you're thinking about questions, I'm going to come back to highlight an event that the Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully will be putting on in September 26th. And as I get that up, I'm going to just check the chat here really quick. But yeah, again, if you have any thoughts or questions, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for joining today. All the links that were shared today will go out into a follow-up email for anybody that was here or registered for this event. Thank you, Margot. Yes, great job, everyone. Thank you so much. And again, I hope that if you are not yet connected to the Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully, to get connected to the work that we're doing in schools with our mindfulness-based social emotional learning micro-credential. We're going to be talking about that at a special workshop on September 26th. You can learn more at educatingmindfully.org/events to go to that event as well. And and thank you so much. Was it Selen? I hope I'm saying that correctly. It was great to have everybody super engaged today. Really a joy to make these connections across the world today and across so many different content areas. Lindsey, did you want to say anything as we close down our time here today?
Yeah, I just wanted to give, again, a shout out and gratitude for everybody. Again, like you said, the engagement, all of our presenters. And then I do want to highlight here for this workshop, our organization has been creating a framework that really will help propel this work and really all the work of what we do within education, but it really provides that ethical framework is what we've been sharing. We really would encourage you to join that event and then continue to follow us, subscribe if you're not currently a part of our organization. But really, there's a lot of great work, and just being here and co-creating together, it has been amazing, and just deep gratitude for everybody here.
Thanks, Lindsey. And I just want to again thank our partners today and those that presented. Dr. Elsa Fries with alongside Dr. Michelle Ament with the Human Intelligence Movement, Lindsey with the Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully, and her own company, Butterfly Within. If you're into podcasting, definitely check out my show, Mind Declutter with Athea Davis. You may also hear my talks with Dr. Elsa Fries and Dr. Michelle Ament with many other thought leaders on many different topics regarding social emotional learning, emotional intelligence, AI, philosophy, education, all the things, because it's all connected. So, and the Illinois Digital Educators Alliance. Super grateful for our supporting partners. And thank you guys so much. I just want to send you off with all the awesome vibes for a great 3-day weekend. If you're working tomorrow, I wish you a very productive day and hope you enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Please stay connected to really all of our presenters today. Please follow them online, stay connected to the work they're doing, whether they're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, or X, excuse me. And definitely, check out our nonprofit, our organization, Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully. Would love to connect with you. And other than that, you guys are free to leave. Thank you so much for an amazing day. I hope you feel full of joy and maybe some questions that were answered, maybe some more questions that you're thinking about. But wherever you are, I know everybody here today, because you showed up, you're lifelong learners, and you're going to go back to your respective roles and take some of this information and plant seeds in your own way with those that you are in conversation with the students that are, under your wing and your guidance. And if you do run into roadblocks or issues, well, you know who to call upon. Certainly you can connect with the Human Intelligence Movement, COSEM, alongside, because we're here at the front and center of this work at the intersection of AI, mindfulness-based SEL, and education. This is not the last conversation. This is one of many conversations that we will be having. As you know, today, there were so many questions that just couldn't be answered because we're at the beginning of something really revolutionary and life-changing in many ways, and questions that we're asking as we develop on how to address these issues in the classroom and schools. So with that said, thank you guys. Hope you have a great Thursday, and thanks for joining today.